Hey everybody, welcome back to the program. Now today I'm going to be talking about music biopics. This was a topic voted on by my members over on Patreon. If you want to find out more, I'll put a card right there as well as a link in the description. But for August 2019, the members of my Patreon page voted on this topic. So let's get into it. Music biopics, are they a good thing or a bad thing? So real simply, they're a good thing because they bring exposure to the artist or the band, right? They're a bad thing because they often aren't historically accurate or, they fudge a thing or two in service of a better story. And so this got me thinking about the few biopics I grew up watching, which were The Doors and La Bamba. And I loved La Bamba because it was either 89 or 90. We had a benefit concert because we had this disastrous earthquake in 1989, and all these different bands came, including Los Lobos and Satana. And I remember thinking, are they going to play La Bamba? I so associated La Bamba with Los Lobos, even though it was a Richie Valens song. But anyway, I love that movie because of the depiction of the 50s, because of Buddy Holly. I think even Brian Setzer was in there playing Eddie Cochran. And I love that movie and the music. It was just so cool to me. And you couldn't get away from La Bamba, the song. I mean, it was everywhere. And The Doors especially, man, what an impact that movie had on me, because it really started me down the path of appreciating what I would call classic rock. Of course, I wouldn't necessarily call that classic rock now, but at the time it was classic rock. You turn on the radio station, boom, there it is. And so those two films really had a profound effect on me, because I don't think I would have actively sought out that music had I not been exposed to it through these films. As I got a little older, then we had Walk the Line, which hit me at the right freaking time. I was just coming out of college, I was in a rockabilly duo, and then here's this movie. And it's so well, at least in my mind, depicted that time period. And the way it portrayed June and Johnny Cash with all the warts and all their struggles and their fights, the greatness and the lows, I just was like, wow. This, I think I saw it twice in the theaters. I could quote it. I love the depiction of all the other rock stars around them, like Jerry Lee Lewis. I forget who else. I think Waylon Jennings was in there in the hotel room for a minute. And then the same thing happened to me with Amadeus. I watched that film. I've always known about Mozart, but I was like, whatever. But watching that, I was like, wait a minute. Is that really how Mozart was? And apparently we don't really know that much about who he was. But to think about how young he was and then all this music that he made and how much of a trickster he was, it was so fascinating that it got me more invested into his music. And then we have movies like Sid and Nancy, which really helps to depict that time period. It just really shows the grittiness. Whether or not it was 100% factual, that's up for debate. And I think that gets to kind of the downside of these biopics, is that they're meant to tell a story. So they move things around, they truncate how long it took something to get made. Great example of that would be in Bohemian Rhapsody, where they just come up with "We Will Rock You" in a matter of minutes, which in reality took longer than that. But for the sake of the film, they sped it up. But to me, that movie was such a joy to watch, and it reminded me of how great Queen is and all their music, and it gave me more of a context to view the band. It gave me, because when I grew up listening to Queen, I heard songs from all these different eras. So to hear it kind of more in context of world events and what they were going through as a band, it helped to humanize these rock stars. And I think that's where biopics can really succeed. Like a really successful biopic, in my opinion, will do that, will give humanity. Like the actors really sink into their roles to almost the point where you kind of forget that they're acting and you really believe it. Like a great example would be Jamie Foxx as Ray Charles, right? I mean, there's stills from that I have to do a double take. Like, wait, is that the movie or is that Ray Charles? At their worst though, biopics, the filmmakers will take too many liberties, they'll gloss over too many details, they'll only show the shiny parts, they won't show the gritty undertones, they'll condense things too much, they'll leave out important details, and you know, the music will end up overpower the story, and then it becomes this overwrought music video, 2.5 hours, say, you know what I mean? And so what BioPics can bring is a newfound appreciation of old music. Like a new generation will discover bands, just like I did when I was a kid. It also makes this music, I wouldn't say relevant again, but it brings it back into the popular culture. I mean, when La Bamba came out, that song became a #1 hit by Los Lobos. Right now in 2019, it's almost like you can't get away from Queen or Elton John with the release of Rocket Man. And then for me, what I really enjoy about BioPics is that it gives a nice context to the music, and it helps to depict this time period in a way that really comes alive, much more so than if you were to watch a documentary on the subject. I mean, unless there was like a film camera rolling, often we don't have motion picture film of a lot of these moments. And so it helps to have a film crew recreate these moments. Like, we're not gonna get these intimate moments of Freddie Mercury figuring out the chord changes to Bohemian Rhapsody. We're just not gonna have that. But we can see it depicted in this film, and I think that's really cool. Or we can see a new take on something that we know very well, like the Stadium Act. Like, they recreated that, but with new camera angles, and it gives you a different perspective. I say watch both. Watch a documentary and watch the biopic, and you get a better picture. In fact, read the book as well. Get as much source material. But I think what biopics can do is spark that curiosity and make you want to go dive down these different avenues of checking out documentaries and books and that sort of a thing. So overall, in my opinion, I think biopics are a very good thing. I think they're a great genre to watch. It gives filmmakers, actors, the surviving musicians a creative outlet. I mean, you don't just have to do your basic rag to riches, how this band came to be. There are more creative options. You can kind of play within these worlds. You can have several actors play the musicians. You don't have to stick to like the cookie cutter formula. I think there's a lot of creativity that can happen even when you can't use the official recorded music. I mean, you can use cover music and have it a totally different direction. So there's a lot of opportunity there, and I think that far outweighs the negatives that biopics can bring. I mean, I think, yeah, they say a few bad apples will spoil the whole bunch. I don't think that applies to biopics. The really good films far outshine the really bad, crappy ones that we like to forget. And maybe for the time period when they came out, we thought they were interesting, but looking back now, they're not. So that's where I sit, but I want to know what you guys have to say. Be sure to leave me a comment down below. Let me know your favorite biopic movies, which ones you think are the worst, and whether or not you think they are a good thing or a bad thing. Until then, thank you all so much for watching. I'm your Vinyl Geek, and I'll catch you on the flip side. Everyone, thanks again for watching this video. Now, if you want to find out more about my Patreon page, there's a link down below as well as a card in the corner. For as little as $1 a month, you can help this channel grow.